China is laying claim to almost 50% of Tajikistan. It's Friday, August 7, 2020, and we have 4 articles today that cover this developing situation, including expansionist China eyes Tajik territory. Also courtesy of the TFI Post, China claims half of Tajikistan after South China Sea and Himalayas. Chinese expansionism hits Central Asia. Also courtesy of the Economic Times, not just India and US, China's behavior is becoming a problem for its friends too. Also a glimpse inside of what China is possibly thinking. Building stronger defense, a crucial goal. Let's hop into it. And this comes courtesy of timesofIndia.com. Expansionist China eyes Tajik territory. China's expansionism is finding new territories and unfriending new countries. Tajikistan, one of the smaller and poorer Central Asian countries, has been worried since Chinese official media has repeatedly said in the past weeks that the Pamir Mountains should be ceded to China. An article by a Chinese historian, Cho Yao Lu, using Chinese sources, says the entire Pamir region belonged to China and should be returned. While the apparent official endorsement has worried the government in Dushanbe, reports say the development has even drawn attention in Russia, which considers the Central Asian countries to be part of its strategic backyard. China and Tajikistan signed a boundary agreement in 2010. When Tajikistan was forced to cede about 1,158 square kilometers of territory in the Pamirs to China. China is now building an airport at Tashkurgan near the Tajikistan-Afghanistan border. That is now a growing cause of concern. The Chinese writer says after the formation of the newest Chinese state, the first task of the authorities was to return the lost lands. Some of the lands were returned, others remain under the control of neighboring countries. One of the very important ancient regions is the Pamir, which was outside of China for 128 years due to the pressure of world powers, writes Cho Yao Lu. In addition, the Chinese government has been talking about gold deposits in Tajikistan. Chinese reports say there are about 145 deposits in Tajikistan alone. The Tajik government has allowed a Chinese company to mine and develop these gold deposits from areas of northern Tajikistan. Officials monitoring these developments say this is a classic Chinese maneuver, where a road or an airport or a development project is used as the thin end of a wedge to take a more muscular position in the country. And this is courtesy of TFIPost.com. China claims half of Tajikistan after South China Sea and Himalayas. Chinese expansionism hits Central Asia. Recently, official Chinese outlets relentlessly republished an article written by a Chinese historian, Cho Yao Lu, several times. The provocative article titled "Tajikistan initiated the transfer to China of its land and the lost mountains of Pamir were returned to their true master." This article claims that the entire Pamir region was once part of China, but it lost these territories in the 19th century due to pressure from the UK and Russia. Although China has not officially staked a claim on the entire Pamir region, but this is how Beijing's expansionism starts. A random CCP-sponsored historian writes about China's historical claims in foreign territories and how Beijing had to relinquish its territory several centuries ago. Central Asia doesn't have much of a choice when it comes to China, as most of the bigger powers like the US and the EU haven't shown much interest in this part of the world. In addition, Russia also doesn't have the economic firepower to match Chinese investments in this region, and Tajikistan itself is crippled by Chinese debt. Dushanbe owes Beijing $1.2 billion in debt out of its total foreign debt of $2.9 billion. But with China threatening to take away almost half of its territory, Tajikistan feels compelled to speak up and demand that China stop sponsoring the revisionist article written by Cho Yao Lu. Thank you for watching this video. If you're finding it informative, please consider giving the channel a subscribe. And this comes courtesy of the Economic Times. Not just India and US, China's behavior is becoming a problem for its friends too. In the regular drumbeat of arrests of alleged Chinese spies, one case last month stood out. It did not involve the United States or another rival of China, but Russia, whose security services accused a prominent Arctic scientist of selling classified data on technologies for detecting submarines. Meanwhile, a court in Kazakhstan in October convicted the Central Asia nation's preeminent China specialist of espionage, a move widely interpreted at the time as a warning against increased meddling by the superpower next door. Both men maintain their innocence, and if China is spying on Russia, Moscow is surely doing the same. Countries such as Russia, Iran, and Kazakhstan need to still get the investment, trade, and in some cases diplomatic support they want from Beijing, while preserving some economic independence and pursuing foreign policy goals that at times conflict. These are all fragile relationships. James Dorsey, senior fellow at the School of International Studies at Singapore's Nanyang Technological University, said of the web of ties between China, Russia, and Iran, plus Turkey. They have been extremely good at finding common ground and managing differences, but it is very opportunistic. Most of the focus has been on China's economic partners in the so-called Global West, from the US to Europe to Australia, as they roll back once enthusiastic engagements amid growing alarm at President Xi Jinping's heavy-handed response to the pandemic. The UK recently reversed the decision to let tech giant Huawei build parts of the nation's sensitive 5G networks and suspended an extradition treaty with Hong Kong. France and Germany are pushing for greater scrutiny of foreign, especially Chinese investment in the European Union, which last year labeled China as a systemic rival. Supply chains are being shortened. There's no such recoil among China's strategic partners. Russia is working with Huawei on a 5G rollout. Iran is trying to close a deal that would pledge $400 billion of Chinese investment, as well as arms sales in exchange for discounted oil, according to as yet unverified leaks of the draft agreement. Russia doesn't feel threatened itself, because right now China can ill afford to alienate a neighbor that's an important military and resource power in its own right, according to Vasily Kashin, a senior research fellow at the Russian Academy of Sciences Institute of Far Eastern Studies. There's little sign any of this is poisoning the overall relationship between Xi and Russian President Vladimir Putin. The two have a mutual understanding on their freedom to act with third countries, according to Alexander Lukin, a prominent Russian author on China and the head of the International Affairs Department of the Higher School of Economics in Moscow. But of course, if it comes to a serious confrontation, that would not be profitable for Russia, and it would have to choose, Lukin said last week. India was preparing to move an additional 35,000 troops to the so-called line of actual control. And our last article of the day provides a little bit of insight into what China is possibly thinking, courtesy of en.people.cn, Building Stronger Defense, Crucial Goal. China should advance modernization of its national defense and armed forces in order to build a strong country, said Xi Jinping. Xi made the remark while presiding over a group study session of the Political Bureau of the CCP Central Committee on Thursday, 2 days before China's Army Day. To develop socialism with Chinese characteristics and realize the great national rejuvenation, efforts must be made to strengthen coordination between economic development and efforts to build a strong military, he said. This will ensure that the modernization of national defense and the armed forces accommodates the national modernization process, and the country's military capability matches national strategic needs, she said, stressing that building a strong national defense and armed forces is a goal that the CCP has aggressively sought. She said that China will achieve the targets and missions of strengthening the national defense and armed forces for 2020 and begin a new journey to fully transform the People's Armed Forces into a world-class one. According to Xi's report to the 19th CPC National Congress, the national defense and military will generally achieve mechanization by the year 2020, with significantly enhanced information and greatly improved strategic capabilities. Facing the accelerated evolution of profound changes unseen in a century and the pandemic's deep impact on the global situations, Xi stressed that China's security situation is undergoing growing uncertainty and instability. He said formulation of the 14th five-year plan from 2021 to 2025 for military development should be coordinated with national development planning and make reform of military policies and institutions a priority. Xi underlined the importance of independent innovation in army building, urging efforts to accelerate breakthroughs in key and core technologies, speed development of strategic, advanced, and disruptive technologies, and implement major strategic projects related to national defense technology and weaponry. While high-quality professional military talent with ability and integrity should be cultivated, She said efforts should be made to recruit excellent talent in various fields to throw themselves into the building of a strong army. She also stressed civilian support for advancing the modernization of national defense and the armed forces, requiring central and state organizations, party committees, and governments at all levels to help solve problems concerning the employment of Army dependents, education of service members' children, and the treatment of veterans. And I think that's a good place to wrap up today's video. I hope that you found it informative, and check back soon for more content.